ridiculous, really. The role that rugby in particular has played in my life.
I never realised just the extent of your career and the stuff you've done until I was researching this. It's really impressive.
Early on, that were tough decisions, like whether to leave New Zealand Rugby and go play rugby league.
Have you found, as you get into this chapter of your life, you've gotten more emotional?
Before these games, you get in the circle, the coach comes in and has a final word before we get on the bus and head off to the ground, talking to the team and everything, and then all right, get on the bus, and so everyone gets up and he goes, "Look, you two come here." Bot and I kind of wander over to him and he goes, "You two are by far the biggest bloody weakling, don't this up." So basically we sat down, they said, "Okay, Craig, if you sign a ARL contract, this will be in your bank account within the next 7 days, and this will be your minimum retainer." And so you're looking at this and going, Jesus, it's a no-brainer.
Do you have any regrets? Craig Innes, Postie, welcome to my podcast.
Nice to be here, mate.
Mate, finally we made this happen. I was going back through our DMs. You've been a slippery guest. You've been quite reluctant.
Well, it's just, I guess it's a matter of just finding that time, spending a lot of time in the Hawke's Bay these days, of course, and just, time to be up here. But it's nice to actually be down and actually having a chat with you rather than just kind of waving from afar as you're kind of off on one of your treks around the city. So, nice to be here.
You and I have known each other sort of, I suppose briefly or in passing for many years now, but I never realised just sort of to the extent of your career and the stuff you've done until I was researching this. It's really impressive.
Oh, well, thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Look, I guess, I was thinking about it recently, just, the role that rugby in particular has played in my life. And, it's kind of ridiculous, really, from starting off as a 5-year-old running around bare feet through to, professional rugby, then the rugby league, and then finally into a career on the management side. So, it's kind of sad in some ways, I guess, that, there probably hasn't been too many days where rugby hasn't kind of come into my mind in some shape or form, but yeah, look, it's been awesome. It's been an awesome ride.
Yeah, so there's sort of, I suppose, 3 big chunks to the story. There's the rugby stuff, including the All Blacks. Then there's the league stuff, which includes what's now known as like an NRL win.
Yep.
And then the player management stuff. And they're all great stories in their own right. There's actually, I was thinking about it when I was researching yesterday, a recent podcast guest, Martin Snedden. There's parallels with you and him.
Yeah, okay.
Like an incredible sporting career followed by an amazing career in sort of sports management or behind the scenes.
Yep.
Yeah. First of all, who gave you the nickname Postie? What does that mean?
It's,
Because it always delivers.
Yeah, well, I like to think it was, but unfortunately that's not the case. But no, when I came out of school, I was given, I was on a sevens tour with Marist, Auckland Marist, and it was actually John Curran came up with the name, and it was just a name association with Glen Innes, where I went to school at Sacred Heart. Something had happened that particular week at the post office had been bloody robbed or some carry on. And from then on in, I was just Postie. And unfortunately, I went off to England and John Gallagher was there at Leeds. So he was calling me Postie. So all the Pommy boys were, Pulse there. I was Postie there. And then, of course, over at Manly and Ridgie was there calling me Postie as well. So it's just followed me wherever I've gone.
So who calls you Craig now and who calls you Postie? Is it 50-50 or?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like a lot of people that I've never met before, like, oh, g'day, Postie, so yeah, it's not going anywhere. I don't mind. It's, it's quite nice to have a nickname, I guess. But it certainly followed me everywhere.
So you're in Auckland for a big dinner this weekend, like a reunion dinner with a bunch of your Auckland teammates. Will they all call you Postie?
Yeah, it's not so much. It's not a dinner. We catch up on every year at Christmas time for a few drinks. The old that 80s, 90s Ranfurly Shield team, which is cool. Benny McCarroll's usually the instigator organising that. But no, that's nothing formal, mate. It's just to get together down at Swashbucklers, just to, see how the year's gone for everyone and kind of catch up and reminisce a little bit. And it usually gets a good turnout. So we're doing that, I think, on Friday. So
it's cool that you do that because it does get harder as you get older, and you have commitments and families and whatever else going on.
Yeah, it does. And it is a cool thing to do. And actually, this year I was in Sydney and managed to catch up with a few of my old Manly mates, and like I hadn't seen them, this particular bunch of guys for over 20 years. But it was like yesterday. It was like we'd run off the field the day before. I think when you've got those shared kind of experiences and, you've kind of gone to battle together and when you do catch up, it's like it was yesterday, and that's what it'll be like on Friday.
When you do you spend much time reminiscing? Or not really? Are you sort of too busy looking forward?
Yeah, not a lot. I guess as you get older, you kind of do a little bit. You kind of, like now and again, if one of those old bits of footage or whatever turn up on social media or whatever, it's quite cool to kind of have a bit of a reminisce. But no, not particularly. Like, there's a lot going on and a lot to look forward to, and I guess it's a portion of your life that was pretty cool. But then you're kind of moving on to the next thing, and I guess in the management game, it's kind of hard to get that across to the younger guys who are right in the thick of it. That it's for a limited time. And then it's just going to become a really small part of your life, hopefully. So make the most of it where you've got it.
You mentioned old footage just a second ago, and something that's actually come along since you've retired is YouTube. So there's old footage that's available at your fingertips on your phone when you're in an Uber anytime you want. And I've watched a lot of old footage of you in the last couple of days. That second try you scored on All Black debut, was that a forward pass?
Yeah, I think it probably was. Yeah, I think it probably was. If we're being honest. I think the TMO definitely would have pulled that one up if that had happened next week. But he wasn't there, so no, actually he wasn't. It was legit.
And it counts on the record book, so that's all that matters.
Exactly.
Oh, mate, this is going to be so much fun. There's so much to talk about. So, Craig Rossinis, born 10th of September 1969 in New Plymouth. Earliest memories?
Well, we went and Dad was a stock agent in Ocado, just out of New Plymouth. We went there long. Mum and Dad were from down there, but we moved to Te Awamutu when I was quite young for Dad's work, and that's really where the rugby kind of journey started there. Dad was a player. He played for Te Awamutu Old Boys, and so earliest memories, I guess, are just kind of running around. I was one of those typical kids with my brothers and friends running around the rugby club, after games. Primary school, started Te Awamutu Primary, and I think about 7 we moved from Te Awamutu to Matamata, and that's a large part of my childhood was actually in Matamata.
Who did you pretend to be when you were playing like rugby on the school field or the backyard when you were little?
Well, and that was pretty much every single night. We, myself and my brothers and friends, we were on the backyard pretty much every single night. And it was always a big battle about who was going to be the All Blacks, who were going to be the South Africans, who was going to be the Springboks. If the Lions were touring, well, then it was, they might get a crack. I guess BG Williams was, BG was always a real hero of mine as a little kid, I guess. But really all of them. Like I say, it was pretty much every night that we'd be out there battling away, and I think that kind of put us all in good stead for later on.
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm the oldest.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have picked you to be the youngest. It's just something I've noticed with the high performance I've had on the podcast. Generally, if you've got older siblings, like Christian Cullen's a great example of this. Like his older brother didn't end up going on to be a great rugby player, but just, I suppose, because Cully had an older person to attack and defend against growing up, it made him tough.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it was, there are 3 of us, and it was usually me against, my other 2 brothers, and so...
Oh, two on one.
Two on one, and it would always end in tears. With the second oldest is Mark, and he was a bloody bad sport little bugger, and so so it always end up in a punch up or in tears, and but as they got a little bit older, it got a little bit harder for me too when they started to kind of team up, and but yeah, we had some real battles out there.
How much it was natural talent versus hard work for you?
I think particularly for me it was probably hard work to a large degree. I guess. Some talent as well, but yeah, I kind of feel like consistency was probably my number one thing. That was always what I was aiming for all the way through my career. Not wanting to have bad games, and winning was everything for me. I didn't care how we got there. Wasn't that interested in kind of being flamboyant or anything like that. I just wanted to win, and that's kind of the way that I kind of played the game, I guess.
Speaking of flamboyance, there's another highlight I saw on YouTube yesterday of you getting a try off the back of a flamboyant Carlos Spencer move. Oh, yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, that's always interesting playing with Carlos, yes, Los, what are we doing? What's the move? And you just get like okay, we're just going to play this one off the cuff. But yeah, no, he was brilliant. Los, brilliant to play with.
When was the first time someone said to you, or someone said about you, this kid's got talent, this kid's going to go somewhere? You remember that? Who was the first person that spotted that in you?
Well, I think I was lucky to. I was probably as a little kid a little bit bigger than so, and I had decent kind of strength and so rugby in those early days kind of came reasonably easy, you know what I mean? And so I started to make all the in the Waikato we had Gwyn Shield, which was kind of sub-union stuff, and then roller mills, and I think making roller mills, that's when people started to notice, these a couple of kids in this team that were pretty good. And in my particular years, that's Walter Little and he was in Tokoroa and Manamere. We played from those kind of roller mill years all the way through. So that's kind of like, well, those two go pretty good. And that was probably the start of it, I guess.
So you wanted to be an All Black as a kid?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now this was completely amateur then. It was actually amateur right through your playing career as well with the All Blacks, and there was no sign of professionalism or money on site.
Yeah.
What did you want to do? Like, what did you want to do for an income?
Hadn't really kind of thought about that too much until later on, to be fair. Look, I thought about the police and stuff like that, they were the kind of things that interest me. When I left school, I was working for Panasonic in a sales and commercial cadet, which was great. But they were great employers, as well, and it was a bit of a rugby job, I guess. I mean, I could go off and do my thing, which was awesome. But I guess that was one of the things that kind of led me down the rugby league path. In the end, was the fact that rugby was amateur, and being able to make that team, that All Black team, at a reasonably early age, getting a real taste of it. And at that same time, friends like Ridgie were going off to play league. John Gallagher had gone to Leeds, Frano had gone to Wigan, and those guys coming back and talking about their experiences. And Ridgie in particular, we spent a lot of time with, and it was kind of like, these guys are off doing this and getting paid to be professional sports people. They're doing it all day. And then I'm seeing like my older All Black teammates, struggling, because they need to employ someone to work the farm while they're away or drive the truck while they're away. And it just didn't seem that right to me, And so I think I just made a decision that, before the World Cup in 91, that was probably going to be my last hurrah, really. And I kind of thought that I'd probably end up getting picked up by an Australian rugby league team, because there'd been a lot of interest from the teams over there. But in the end, I ended up signing for Leeds, and that was the end of it for a few years, 4.5 years of rugby league.
Yeah, it was an incredible rugby league career. We'll get into that. But first of all, the All Black stuff. Can you remember the moment you made the team? How was the announcement done? Like radio, TV?
Well, no, it was TV. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously I had a pretty good idea I was going to be. In those days, it was, you didn't get a phone call or anything. You just sat there and listened on the radio, and I think maybe they still do that these days, which is pretty cool, really. But this particular day, they had the TV cameras in the living room at my flat. And so we had mum and dad were there and a couple of friends, and so
if that's not a telltale sign you're about to be named, I don't know what is.
Well, that's a thing. That's a thing. It was kind of like I had a little bit of an idea, I guess. It would have been pretty embarrassing if, but so I got named, and pretty surreal. So that was for the '89 tour of Ireland Wales, and so Inga was also named in that team. Ridgie was named in that team. So, we had a thing at home and, celebrated there and then we all went off down to Postie Rugby Club, which is our club. And then, the likes of Joe Stanley had obviously been named in that team as well. And Jace Goldsmith he was my roommate, my flatmate back in those days. And Jace, who had already been an All Black from our kind of age group, he'd broken his leg earlier that year, so he was out. So it was a little bit of kind of, great that Inga and Ridgie and I were kind of there, but, Jace not being there with us was a little bit sad, I guess. So we had a big celebration down at Ponsonby, and then that night, and then after that, Joe said, "Okay, you coming back home with me?" And we sat around at Joe's place probably until about 3:00 in the morning, until his wife threw us out. And it was cool. And, it's like, well, boys, this is what it's all about. And this is what you're going to have to expect. And this is what you need to do. And it was awesome, and we just sat around talking about it, and having people like that around was pretty cool.
Oh, he was more experienced.
Well, Joe Stanley.
Yeah, right. Oh, so he was sort of taking you under his wing a little bit.
Yeah, well, he's Ponsonby, Ponsonby through and through, and
right.
And the new Ponsonby All Blacks. I mean, Inga and I at that stage were 19-year-olds, and Ridgie just, I think he's just turned 20 or whatever. So it was cool.
Man, I got goosebumps just hearing some of these names you've dropped already. Like it's stacked. It's just a stacked era.
Yeah.
Are you still quite close? Obviously, rest in peace, Inga Tuigamala, but what about Ridgie? You still have a relationship with him?
Yeah, well,
your paths cross?
I don't see him much. He spends most of his time in France these days, I think, gallivanting around in southern France. But like I mentioned earlier with those other Manly boys, whenever you catch up, it's awesome. It's always good because, there's just so many shared experiences, in times when you've had to rely on each other and that, and, those bonds are pretty hard to break.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast real early on, like when I was still in a spare room at home and there were no video cameras in the setup. He was fabulous. It was the first time we'd really connected, but I think he's incredibly misunderstood, I think, by a lot of the New Zealand public.
Yeah, I don't know about misunderstood.
He's prickly, polarized. I don't know what it is.
He's polarizing, He's a polarizing character. But at the heart, though, he's one of those guys that for his mates, you'd want to be in the trenches with him. One of the bravest footballers I've come across, and the 96, well, might get into the league later on, I guess, but the 96 year where we were on the Premiership, we actually started without him. He'd come back to the Warriors, and it was the start of the Super League RL kind of battle, and then, but once he came back, that was like the finishing piece for that team that year. He was just so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and another podcast guest I've had on, Dame Julie Christie. Yeah, she just talked about just how fiercely loyal he is. And the example she gave was when Brent Todd got in some trouble, and Matthew put him up for home day at his house. Fiercely loyal.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's him in a nutshell.
Which is a wonderful. You can say what you want about someone, but loyalty is a wonderful quality that no one can take away from you.
Totally.
So turning up to that first team meeting or training session as a 20-year-old, what's most intimidating? Who's most intimidating?
Well, I tell you that, like, you talk about the first meeting, so that was always over at the Paranamo, right? And so I was driving over the bridge, and I was flustered because I was, thinking, shit, I'm going to be late to get there, and so I was going a little bit too quick, and next thing, the old lights behind me, and they pulled me up just so that I came over the bridge, and he said, geez, you're going a bit quick, mate, and I said, yeah, I'm late for a meeting. Yeah, you crazy, And I said, yeah. I said, I'm on way to my first All Black, buddy. He said, follow me. He said, he got in his car, and I followed him into the Po. So that was a pretty good introduction into the team. But
police escort.
How good. Yeah. But look, I guess I was lucky. Coming into it, that in that era there were so many Aucklanders that made up their team, so it was kind of, you kind of walked in there and there were kind of like a few extras from around the country, right, and a big contingent of Aucklanders. So that was pretty good, and I think it made it a lot easier for just settling into the environment, having known a lot of the guys.
And what was the? I mean, you're in a lucky position where, due to your job now as a player agent, player manager, you sort of, have your finger on the pulse, so you know what team cultures are like now versus then. What was it? Yeah, what was it like back then? Big drinking culture. Work hard, play hard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it was a different type of culture altogether than it is today. And yeah, for right or wrong, I guess it did play quite a part. There wasn't too many away games where there wasn't a court session where they'd kind of get you pretty loaded up, and then right, see you boys and behave yourselves out there tonight, and and it was just part of the scene, but it was at the same time as you had to front up the next day if you're on tour and you had a big night, it didn't matter, you just had to front up the next day. It was pretty old school like that. Yeah.
Where did you sit on the bus?
Right at the front.
Oh, really?
Right at the front.
So you got to play 17 tests. Where did you end up on the bus?
Right at the front.
Oh, you never got off the front seat?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, you got to do your time. And it was the same, even like to say, the Auckland changing room back in those days. I think it was probably my third year before I actually got my own seat. So there's, the changing room, and then there's this one bench with about 9 guys trying to, change. But it was pretty cool when eventually someone says, "Oh, Postie, that's your seat over there." Someone had, obviously gone, and that's your seat, and it kind of felt like a bit of an achievement, But I remember Inga coming in on his. I'd been in there a couple of weeks, and then Inga got brought into the team, and he came in and he just kind of threw his bag down somewhere. I can't remember who the player was. It might have been Alan Wetton. I can't remember, but whoever it was just came and just grabbed his bags and just bloody biffed them. It's like you learnt the hard way.
That's a different time, mate. Yeah, Martin Snedden, who I mentioned before, so he played cricket through the 80s. He said when they were on tour, every single night of the week, the batters would go out as a group, the bowlers would go out as a group. So they'd be drinking every night of the week.
Yeah.
Different time, eh?
Yeah, completely different time.
Yeah.
We had a load of fun. I guess as far as high performance goes, you just wouldn't get away with it these days. You just couldn't. These guys are just so much bigger, stronger, fitter. And they still get out there and have a good time, but I think they need to be a lot more cautious than we ever were.
It's social media and phones.
Social media and everything else, phones, cameras, all that kind of stuff. It's important that you're kind of in control. So, certainly a different age.
So your All Black debut, that was against Wales at Cardiff Arms Park in 1989. How nervous were you about doing the haka? Was the haka a big thing then, or?
Yeah, well, it was because, Buck had kind of transformed the haka back in those days, and what an awesome leader he was. Look, I think, you as a kid, you kind of grow up doing that particular haka, right? Whether it's on the back lawn before you kind of start getting stuck into your brothers or or at different times. So, you kind of know, you'd have a couple of rehearsals and then away you go. I mean, it's nothing like, the performance these days, of course, but it was certainly a step up from what it had been. But what I remember most about my that debut was with it being at Cardiff Arms Park, and I'd grown up, one of those kids like, well, probably you and everyone else, like getting woken up by your parents in the middle of the night at 2:00 in the morning, when the All Blacks were on tour, and
cheese toasties and a Milo,
exactly that, and I was one of those kids, and then here you are. You're standing on Cardiff Arms, and they're singing "Land of Their Father" and all that kind of thing, and it was just unreal. It was surreal. But the weird thing was, like, I kind of felt like I was been there before because I'd thought about it so much, and being that particular field, Cardiff Arms Park, there's something special. There was something special about it. It's just part of New Zealand rugby folklore, right? So to be there and do that was very special, and I'll never forget it. Probably ask me about games, I can't remember most of them, actual playing, but moments like that are pretty special.
Yeah, and to top it off, 2 tries, one of them legal.
Well, 2 of them legal.
2 of them are wanted, yeah, and 2 of them are stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's icing on the cake stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
After that, do you feel like you've sort of, cemented yourself as an All Black, or you got more credibility or respect amongst the team? Or
I was lucky. My JK's misfortune. He ended up with a Achilles. He tore an Achilles, and so that was him buggered for the tour. I went as a centre. They threw me in as a wing in one of the games. I went pretty well, and then I kind of filled in for JK as that right hand winger, and had a good tour and got the call up. So as often the way, someone's misfortune is your fortune. You got to take it with both hands, and opportunity, yeah. And yeah.
And who was there? Did you have any? Were your parents there? Or
yeah, mum and dad were there. Yeah, mum and dad were there, and like they reckon I scored that try pretty early. That first try, I think, was after about 4 or 5 minutes. And mum reckoned she'd never saw it because she had still had tears in her eyes from the anthems and that, So so that was pretty cool to have them there, because they played a massive part in this that support network. Growing up, they were always there, so that was pretty cool for them to be sitting up there watching that.
What have you got that jersey anywhere? What have you done with it?
That particular jersey, Dad's got at home up on the wall. Yeah, I haven't actually got like a whole lot. Like, he was a bit of a bugger, Daddy. When I went to England, I gave him all my jerseys. Like, he's, charities here and charities there, and all of a sudden you've got bugger all bloody jerseys. But that one's on the wall.
Wow, that's so special. Yeah, you were telling me before we started, your dad's still around. Gets by on a diet of like a box of Lion Red and a carton of ciggies a week.
Yeah, something like that. Not quite like that these days, but
right.
He's still going pretty strong.
That's so cool that he's got that jersey hanging up. I suppose it says just how much it means, right?
Yeah. No, they certainly got a lot of satisfaction out of being there that day, particularly. But for myself and my other 2 brothers, who they were reasonable footballers as well. Mum and Dad were a big part of our support.
What about other bits of memorabilia? Like I found this. Where is it? I found this thing online yesterday, like a bubblegum card from the 1990s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like do you have like a pool room or anything?
I have got
a steamer box full of crap somewhere in storage.
Well, I'm like everyone. You always swap jerseys. And actually, my jersey from that Welsh game, so that's on the wall. And the reason why I got to keep it. Because you always, you end up swapping jersey. So Terry Wright actually after that game against the Welsh, he gave me his All Black jersey to give to my opposition, so I could keep my jersey. So so that was pretty cool, Terry. But most of them, to be honest, are in boxes. I think in my office I've got I guess just to map out my eras. I've got my Manly 96 jersey. We won the Premiership. I've got my All Black jersey in the middle, and I've got Leeds jersey from our first trip to Wembley. So they're the only ones that I got on the wall. So Buck was captain on that tour, and then we came home, and he was replaced by Gary Whitten. That's when the Bring Back Buck thing started. Yeah.
What was it like being in the team at that time?
Kind of. I guess you're concentrating on yourself a little bit, but Joe was also he left the team at that stage, and then I came in as a replacement for him in the centres. So I kind of moved from the wing into the centres, and our first set of test matches were Bearside Cup, three tests against Australia. So I mean, I was kind of focused on, should I got to do a good job here rather than looking at the big kind of picture of what was going on. But there was certainly a lot of backlash, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because another big All Black controversy was when Kelly was dropped by John Mitchell, and I had Steve Devine on, who was in the team at the time, and he said everyone's just focusing on their own job to even sort of notice that sort of stuff. What was Buck like though? When I had Frano Bonica on, he called him the scariest person he's ever met. He said his nickname was God.
Yeah.
What's your recollections or memories of Buck Shelford?
Well, he was great. He was awesome. For a bunch of young, because there were a lot of young players on that particular tour. Myself and Walter, John Tumi came in as a replacement for JK, and then Richie and so it was there's some young guys there, right? And Buck, I guess, was a bit of a father figure in a lot of ways, and but he was accessible, and he didn't kind of put himself on any kind of pedestals or anything like that. He was just a really good guy, and the thing was, he just led from the front. He was just so bloody tough, and so you're happy to follow people like that. So yeah, we were lucky we had people like him. Grizz Wylie was the coach of that team. Like, he was a scary bugger. But again, when you got to know him, like just a really big hearted guy, and loved his players, and you wanted to play for people like that. So yeah, it was a great tour. That my first rugby All Black experience was awesome. I got to play test matches on that trip, and we had a lot of fun. Rick Solito made that Good, Bad, and the Rugby kind of video, so people got to have a bit of a look at what goes on, and it was good fun.
Yeah, that was before its time, eh? That sort of stuff. Like those sort of behind the scenes sports documentaries are massive now. Like you look at Drive to Survive, and you can probably take the roots all the way back to the Good, the Bad, and the Rugby. That VHS, I think it sold something like 100,000 copies at Whitcourse. Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah, a little bit of a difference between Good, Bad, and Rugby and Drive to Survive. But
Rick and JK with a handicam. Okay, yeah, production values are a bit less.
But effective.
Yeah, who else was really... Well, MJ, he was really tough, right?
Yep. Yeah, he, just a free kick athlete, and it just transformed, loose forward play at that time. Like when you had people like him, again, I guess, like I mentioned before, I was just lucky to kind of come into that Auckland environment where you had all these kind of guys. I think I played 50 games for Auckland before I left to go to rugby league, and we had one loss against New South Wales, and shitty conditions over in Sydney. But apart from that, you never even felt like you were going to be in a losing team. Just these great footballers around you was pretty neat.
And someone like Grizz Wylie, do you sort of like talk around him, or you just keep your head down and speak when you're spoken to?
Oh, yeah, pretty much just like that. When I that Bearside Cup, that first series back in New Zealand, and I got named in the centre. So Walter Little and I were the two midfielders, and so we were a couple of 20-year-olds at that time. So I think about it now, and you think, bloody hell, it's pretty young midfield for international rugby. But before these games, you get in a circle. You put your chairs in a circle, and the coach comes in and has a final word before we get on the bus and head off to the ground. And I remember Grizz kind of, talking to the team and everything, and all right, get on the bus, and so everyone gets up, and he goes, "You two come here." And so, Walt and I kind of wander over to him. He goes, "Yeah, so the Australians reckon that you two are by far the biggest bloody weak link. So don't fuck this up." We kind of looked at each other, and it's like, no pressure, no extra pressure on the 20-year-olds, but it all worked out pretty well. But yeah, no, he was a hard man.
Wow, not mincing his words. Not a lot of duty of care there by today's standards. What about a Grizz Wylie halftime spray? Like if the team's not doing well?
They were up there. The other, the World Cup 91, where they decided, which was a massive mistake really, to bring Hardy in as well. So John Hart and Grizz to co-coach the team at the World Cup. And I think this is pretty well documented. It's kind of going over old ground really, but both terrific coaches in their own right. but chalk and cheese, absolute chalk and cheese.
Yeah, bad chemistry.
Yeah, real bad chemistry. So, and I remember, going off to play the Australians in the semi-final, we ended up losing that game. But I just remember being at the hotel before we get on the bus and the coaches come in and Hardy kind of getting in there and, talk. Grizz went first and he spoke for about 30 seconds, and that was it. And then Hardy kind of came in and his message was a little bit longer. And in the end, you're kind of like, this was before a big test match, right? You're kind of looking at, Hardy and you're kind of like looking at Grizz and you're going, Jesus, you could just see him getting more wound up as time went by. So, yeah, so it was a crazy decision to bring those guys together for that. But anyway.
Yeah, well, completely different person. You got Grizz Wylie from like an old school rugby background, and then John Hart with a Fletcher's management sort of background. What are your recollections of that Rugby World Cup? Because little history lesson. So the 87 was the very first Rugby World Cup.
Yep.
And the All Blacks won here at home. So up until that point, we just assumed they were easy to win, right? So then you're in the second World Cup, 1991, and I suppose people think, we're just going to win it again because we're the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Did it hurt at the time?
Yeah.
Was it a massive loss?
Yeah. No, look, you feel those losses. No, I don't think anything's changed there. You feel like you've let the whole country down, You're kind of carrying a pretty big load on the shoulders if you're looking at it that way. That was a really good Australian team, They'd beaten us a couple of times leading up from there. And I think the All Black team at that time was kind of about to kind of go into a bit of a transformation period, like we had players, a group of younger players that were starting to find their feet. And then a group of older players who are probably starting to kind of head down the other side of the hill.
Like the end of the Grant Foxes sort of era?
Yeah. So it wasn't a perfect kind of situation going into World Cup. And World Cups were new at that point. So like the lead and there was nothing very strategic about the way we went into the World Cup. It's just like, there's a World Cup coming up and this is the team and where you go. I think there's obviously a lot more thought and preparation goes into World Cups these days.
Was there any sort of public backlash after that? Like I'm thinking, I had John Hart on the podcast, and after the '99 World Cup, he was spat on. He was treated real badly, and actually spiraled into like real serious mental health issues as a result of that. Was it the same in '91 or not as severe?
Well, I don't really know because I didn't come home.
Wise.
So I'd organised to stick around after the World Cup and play some club rugby at Bedford, just out of London, and I was going to do that for a few months and then kind of wandered home after that. But while I was doing that, that's when I got the phone call from Doug Lawton, who was the coach at Leeds Rugby League, and it was a little bit of time before I went home. I ended up at the end of the rugby league season in England. So.
Yeah, and just to timestamp it, so this is pre-internet, pre-mobile phones, so you couldn't even read articles back home, even if you wanted to. There was, your parents could probably clip some things and send them over to you, and you'd get them 3 weeks later.
I think it was pretty soon after that World Cup that I think Laurie Mains was named as the coach or was about to be named, because I remember getting a phone call from Hardy and I got a phone call from Laurie just before I'd actually signed, so I think it must have been pretty soon after that Laurie was named as the coach, and then kind of went into that kind of transition period with the All Blacks, and he started to kind of bring in new players and
Yeah, we'll get to the league stuff in a second. So you left after that World Cup in '91, and then you came back and you were in some All Black training camps when you came back towards the tail end of your career. Have I got this right? Like you're in like some Taupo training camp? Who was the coach then?
That was it. Yeah, that was when I came back to Union at the end
after league.
Yeah, after league. Yeah. So
who was coach then? Was that?
That was Hardy.
Hardy.
Yeah, it was Hardy. Yeah. Yeah. So I came back and one of the first things they did was send me down to Taupo to a camp with the All Blacks. Look, it probably wasn't the best thing to be doing really from a PR point of view.
Why's that?
Well, I think a lot of people he'd been off playing rugby league. What's he doing at an All Black camp? So,
were you still sort of seen as like a defector or something?
Well,
like that?
I don't know if it was so much a defector, but I hadn't played rugby for a long time, so there's a little bit of negativity. But I think people saw it as a little bit controversial having a leaguey kind of come in and straight into that type of environment. But anyway, it was just a bit of bloody testing, and that it was no big deal.
Yeah. What are some of the lessons from the All Blacks environment which have stuck with you through your professional life? There's
just something really special, and I guess it worries me a little bit that we can't lose those core values that have made the All Blacks such a unique and powerful, not only sports team, but the ethos around keeping things straight and loyalty and being humble and all those things that have made All Black teams so good. I think you can carry those through into other aspects of your life, and I think they've tried to kind of commercialise it a little bit too, which I don't know if I'm such a fan of. But
in what way? Like yeah, what do you mean?
Well, I think you'll get businesses will spend time down at New Zealand Rugby, kind of being taught the whole kind of All Black ethos of how to kind of do business, basically. And
I thought that's what you were going to say. Like I was going to, the James Kerr book. What's it called? I think it's the James Kerr book. It's got lessons from the All Blacks, and it talks about the no dickhead policy. And, no one's beyond sweeping the sheds and things like that.
Yeah.
I suppose there are transferables for business, but
there definitely are, I guess. But yeah, look, I think there are lessons that I learned that I've been able to kind of carry through into other aspects of my life, and I think just kind of keeping things real is probably the most important.
Yeah. What was your proudest moment as an All Black?
Well, I guess nothing beats your first Test match. Nothing. I don't think anything would ever beat that standing there at Cardiff Arms Park. About to play your first Test match. That was pretty cool. Being named, hearing your name read out, it's just kind of surreal. All that kind of bit. But yeah, look, I'm really happy with what I achieved. While I was there, it probably, and some people say, it wasn't long enough, really. But I'm more than happy with what I achieved while I was playing playing rugby and at that point, and then able to go off and do something different.
Yeah, and you played every game in the '91 World Cup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a hell of a contribution. You look at how many All Blacks there's been like 12 or 1300 All Blacks, and there's a lot of one test All Blacks along the way. So to get to 17, it's no mean feat.
Yeah. Well, back in those days too, you played all the midweek games too. Yeah. So I think I ended up with about 30 games in a All Black jersey, which I'm really proud of.
And financially, what did you get back then? Did you get per diems? You get like a day rate or anything?
Yeah, and I can't remember what the hell it was, but it was bugger all.
Like $20, $50?
Yeah. And I mean, like, and this is the thing, right? So, if I think you'd probably know, you have your, if you got a Test match or you got a midweek game, whatever, you got your playing team. And back in those days, if you were coming off the bench, you were lucky to get on the field because no one wanted to give up their spot. So there was no kind of, interchange or anything like that. So you had your playing team, then you had your dirties, which were the reserves, and then you had the dirty dirties. The dirty dirties were the guys who didn't even change. They just sat in the stand and ate lollies. So one of the things was with all the games, we were all given two tickets, 2 match tickets for every game, whether it was a Test match or a midweek game. So it was the job of a couple of the DDs, the dirty dirties, to get out there with the rest of the scalpers. And
A few moments later.
All right, so we're back, Postie. I don't know what just happened. There was like a power cut.
Who knows?
So we're going to continue with limited light, and I've got my glasses here, which I don't normally wear because the font on the cards is too small. But you were in the middle of a really good story when the power went out. We were talking about
Well, I think we were talking about how we were paid back in those old amateur days, and I was just talking about how we all got 2 tickets for these, for each game, whether it was a test match or a midweek game, and the DDs, the guys that weren't you weren't getting changed to actually play that day. A couple of them would have to go out with our other scalpers and sell off our tickets, and then all the money went into a pool which they called the Cabbage patch, and I think Foxy was usually the treasurer. He was in charge of the cash that was generated from the Cabbage patch, and then at the end of the tour, that was all divvied up between the boys, and again, for the young guys, it was awesome. It was like, a couple of grand or whatever, beautiful. We'd go off on a little excursion around Europe or whatever, and but of course for the older guys, that was pretty important, that money. They had to kind of go home and, like I was saying, whether it was paying people that had been looking after the farm or looking after the truck or whatever, and I just never really kind of sat that well that he had like these high performing kind of athletes at that time, having to struggle to kind of get out there and play for their country and do what they did. I mean, everyone loved it. No one was complaining, but it still wasn't right. And so that had a big effect on me, I guess, and I guess when that opportunity came up for rugby league, well, I was all over it.
Yeah, so this was 91 after the World Cup, where the All Blacks finished third. Seems like a no-brainer to me. What sort of money was on offer for that first league deal? Can you remember?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't remember exactly, but it was pretty reasonable kind of money for back in those days. Like nothing compared to what the guys get paid today, I guess. But I think it was maybe around $1 million kind of Kiwi, something like that, over a 4-year period or whatever it was, and batch payments and everything else. So
that's crazy money.
Well, yeah, it was certainly a lot more than being a sales kid at Panasonic, which was a great job, by the way. I'm not complaining about that, but yeah, look, it was that type of money, yeah.
So I was thinking going from being a dirty, that's scalping tickets to get a couple of grand at the end of a tour from the Cabbage patch to, I was thinking like $50,000 a year would have been a substantial amount of money. That's like a no-brainer to me. Why weren't more people making the switch?
Don't know. I guess it's kind of position specific. And also, I think, it was only really the younger guys that they were targeting that they probably had time to make that transition from playing union to league. Mind you, in saying that, Postie and John Gallagher were a little bit older, I guess, but I don't know. I guess they probably figured that outside backs and that were probably going to transition a little bit easier than others, and that's kind of what they tended to go for.
Who did you speak to about it? You speak to your parents, or you speak to any friends? Or?
Yeah. Well, I spoke to Dad a lot about it, and Dad, funny enough, like I said, had always been a really big supporter of everything we did, but I always had this thing in my head that he'd always told us too, when it's over, and no one's going to care. When it's over, it's over. And, keep your nose clean and, you just do all the right things. But at the end of the day, you got to look after yourself, all those kind of things he, always kind of said. And they kind of stuck with me a little bit, I guess. Spoke to him a bit. I was lucky that Grant McCara was our coach at Ponsonby, and he was also my accountant, really good accountant. And so I spoke to Grant a lot about it. He kind of became like a quasi kind of agent, I guess, for me. And so I spoke to him about it, and he helped me a lot. And so that was good. So, spoke to them. Buck was actually, while I was at Bedford, he was playing down the road at Northampton. So, kind of spoke to Buck a little bit about it. But not a lot. Yeah. I mean, it was my decision to make, and, I kind of feel like I kind of made a decision based on what I thought was right for me, and so I wasn't persuaded by anyone else, or it was just like, I think, for my long-term future, this is probably going to be a good move for me, as long as I don't stuff it up. So I was always really conscious of making sure that I was going to succeed, and I wasn't just going to kind of blow all the money. I wasn't just going to piss all the money away or whatever. I was going to try and do the right things, and so yeah, I certainly don't regret it. It was a good move, and certainly enjoyed my time.
Oh, yeah, no one could hold that against you. Like, yeah, are you kidding me? I know there's like pride in the black jersey, and it's this thing that, a dream that you almost manifested from when you were a little boy.
Yeah.
Getting up watching these games in the middle of the night. But, setting yourself up for a financial secure future, it seems like a no-brainer. Where did your financial literacy come from? Like there's a casualty of players, like when rugby went professional that, suddenly went from nothing to big money that, weren't equipped with the skills to handle it. Where did it come from for you to not do dumb things?
I think it was just a fear of failure, really, more than anything else. I just, like I said, I just didn't want to stuff the stuff. I mean, to give away an All Black career, move to the other side of the world, away from your support network, away from your friends and your family and everyone else, to make those kind of sacrifices. And I did look at them as, you're going to make some sacrifices to do this. If you're going to do it, well, you're going to make it work, right? And it's actually something I tell the players today. If before they go off and play in Japan or play in France, whatever, it's exactly the same thing. It's like, well, make sure that it's fun and it's great to go off and have a new experience, but you got to make this work for you for your long term future. So yeah, and that's kind of always stuck in my mind right from the start.
And how was life in Leeds? So you were there for, I think, 5 seasons, 135 games.
Yeah.
Something you've got in common with Oasis, you got to play Wembley.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Yeah. What's that like?
Yeah, that was pretty unreal. But Leeds, I love my time in Leeds. Leeds was awesome, and the people up there are just were fantastic. And Leeds is a pretty cool city, actually. It was pretty metropolitan, pretty international. Great shopping, all those kind of things. But it's the north, and certainly a lot different from being down south. But that's good in a good way, And the supporters were just so passionate. Like the Leeds fans are kind of crazy, fanatical supporters, and they'll let you know if things weren't going well. You'd be coming off at the end of a game if things hadn't gone well that day, and they'd be like chanting, what a waste of money, what a waste of but they'll all be back there the next week. We are Leeds. They're back singing again. So so that was pretty cool, and my first game was on my first league experience. I never played league before. Was over at Widnes. It was a bit of a shithole over the Pennines, and I shouldn't really say that, but it was a cold, miserable night. And this is for the second team, just to kind of give me a run. And, we were playing on a pitch that was pretty much frozen over. You needed blades, like skating rather than rugby boots. And I just remember getting out there just going, what the hell, what are you doing? But so I played that game, and then on the Saturday I had my first game for the first team against Right York, and that was a Challenge Cup game. And so that was my first experience at Headingley in front of this kind of full crowd and full stadium, and it was very cool. And I just loved it. It was we had great guys. A lot of Kiwis. We had a stack of Kiwis at the club, your Kevin Iros and your George Manns and Tony Kemp and Carl Hall. And so I was lucky to be surrounded by, a lot of people from home, and the English guys were awesome as well. So, Ellery Hanley and Gary Schofield and people like that, legends of the game. And that's where I learned the game from. Doug Lawton was the coach, but he was more of a kind of like a football manager. He wasn't so kind of technical or out on the field. Like we'd be training and he'd be in his office having, smoking fags. And
different era.
Yeah. But so I kind of learned from the players. I basically had to learn the game from the players and just getting out there and playing.
And then after 5 years at Wigan, you end up in Perth?
Leeds. So I had in my contract an opportunity to go off and play an off season in Australia. So in my last year at Leeds, it was the first year they had the Western Reds came into the competition as an expansion team based out of Perth. So Peter Mulholland was the coach, and he came over and he signed me up, and so it was like a 10-week stint pretty much. So I went out there, and that was my first experience of playing in Australia, which was it was just a different level. I was kind of like, this is me. This is what I want to be doing.
Wow. What do you mean? Like in terms of the professionalism or the setup, or what do you mean a different level?
Well, the English game is great, but kind of, I guess, not as structured as the Australian competition. And out of all the rugby or in rugby league I've played, I mean that what is the NRL competition now is it's next level. It's tough. It's every week is tough, and you've got to have a thick skin while you're out there, because there's a lot of talking going on, and there's big hits, and there's a lot of I just thought, this is awesome. I just loved it. I loved it. I loved it, and so and we had some really good players at up there in Perth. They were kind of seen as a bunch of kind of has-beens, and but your Mark Guys were there, and Ronnie Howes and people like this, and we actually had quite a successful little stint. So I enjoyed that, but it was just kind of before I went to Perth, the ARL Super League thing was just starting to kind of heat up. And give us a history lesson for anyone that doesn't sort of remember that or recall that. Yeah, what was that period like? Well, I mean, it was basically the pay channels kind of going to war. You had News of the World, you with the Murdochs, and then Kerry Packer with Optus, and so the game kind of got fractured to a large degree. And I actually remember going off to play golf with Bobby Goulding. He was he was at Leeds when I first got the little halfback, and it was on the radio talking about how the English competition was moving to Super League. Well, what's the Super League? And anyway, we just pulled up, and I got this phone call from a lawyer in Bradford. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're just about to play golf." He said, "Well, get your ass in the car, get over to my office, because the ARL guys are in town, the Australian Rugby League guys." And I'm like, who are they? So anyway, so I just packed up and headed over and walked up the stairs, thinking I'd be the only one in the waiting room. I walked in, there's about 10 other guys all sitting in there, and all from different teams, from Wigan and bloody Salford or whatever. And I was kind of like, "What's going on?" And they're like, but one by one, guys were going into the boardroom, kind of going in, looking all perplexed, and then coming up with the biggest bloody grins on their faces you've ever seen. And so my turn came, and I walked in, and there was a lawyer from the ARL and Frank Stanton, who would eventually end up being he was the CEO at Manly. So he was the CEO when I was at Manly, but he was there representing the ARL. So basically, we sat down. They said, "Okay, Craig, if you sign a ARL contract, pledging your loyalty to the ARL, this will be in your bank account within the next 7 days, and this will be your minimum retainer. Then you got to negotiate with your club on top of that." And so you're looking at this and going, Jesus, it's a no-brainer. So I'm like, I better go and talk to the club about that. So I went back and to and fro with Leeds and everything. And in the end, I ended up signing this ARL contract. And that's when the Manly thing started to kind of come into play.
So ARL is like the NRL now as we know it.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you remember what? Yeah, was it just like a lolly scramble with cash at the time?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It was a fantastic time to be a player. There's no doubt about that.
Can you remember the sort of figures?
Not really. It was they were pretty big, and some of the figures that were bandied around were unbelievable for the time. It's all relative, right? But there are a lot of boys that did pretty well out of that. The unfortunate part of that was that it almost crippled the game completely. But what's kind of it's the phoenix that rises, right? And what's come out of that since that NRL competition is pretty cool, pretty amazing. So, but yeah, they had to go through all that to get to that stage.
Did you see a lot of your teammates do silly stuff with the cash? Cars or I don't know, just gifts for friends or
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's there's that saying, "Easy come, easy go." But it's hard at that age. Like it's really impressive that you had the foresight or the wisdom to to be smart with your cash.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess for a lot of guys, that aren't from around money, it's hard to know the value of it, right? And it's the same thing happening today, except these guys, there's some pretty considerable cash that's thrown around. So, having that kind of support network around to kind of help kind of guide them through that is really important. And I think the NRL do a really good job. Rugby here in New Zealand, the Players Association, and with the agents, kind of do our bit to try and help them kind of navigate all that. But it's hard, and you can lead a horse to water. But at the end of the day, the guy's got to want to do it. And people have different values, and for some people it doesn't really matter.
Your different priorities.
Priorities, exactly.
So after that year in Perth, that year in Perth, you got to play the Warriors in their first NRL season. Yeah, what was that like? Yeah, that was pretty cool to kind of come home and play against the Warriors. So they beat us that day, and actually that was a pretty bad day for Frano. You recently had on he broke his leg in that game. I can remember the bloody snap here in the snap. It makes me kind of go, oh Jesus! But that was cool. That was But one thing I remembered coming on the bus to that game, and it was pissing down, and it was a horrible night, and all the Australians, they're all saying, bloody shithole, and it's always stuck with me that this place should be an absolute fortress for the Warriors. No one should come here and win because they all hate coming here. Especially minimum 3-hour flight,
especially like in the middle of winter, and it's kind of damp and cold and miserable, and they're all used to run around in these singlets at training, buddy, in Sydney and Brisbane and that. I mean, this place should be like, they should make this like, you just don't, you don't want to come here. You don't want to come here because you're going to get bashed and you're going to be cold and miserable.
Will the Warriors ever win?
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah. I think they will.
When? In our lifetime?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I personally don't have like a whole lot of dealings directly with the Warriors. I'll kind of concentrate with my work more in the union space. But recently I've had more and more. I've got a few younger players that have been involved, and I'm really impressed with the way that they go about their business and the way they look after the young guys, and they do a really good job. And so that's been really good to see. I don't know. It's a hard one to put your finger on. I think people underestimate, and not making excuses, but that travel aspect. I think that it plays a bigger part than what people probably appreciate. I know, from when I was playing in Perth, and it was a longer flight. It's 5 hours down to Sydney, whatever, as opposed to 3. But it's still just that those time changes and in and out, and I'm sure that has some kind of effect. But at some stage, I think they're gonna come through. Yeah, there's certainly the talent. And there's more and more that using talent. It's just kind of getting the right stuff and getting the right mix, because you can't just have rock stars, and you can't just have grinders. You got to have a bit of everything to win these competitions. Yeah, there's this saying like a champion team will always beat a team of champions, or something like that. Absolutely, it's so true, and that's what we found at Leeds. I mean, we had this team, like amazing individuals. But, we lacked kind of discipline, week-to-week discipline. We'd go and beat Wigan, who were the top team. We'd beat them one week, but then we'd go and lose to this bottom team the next week. So we had a team full of champions, but we weren't a champion team. Whereas Wigan were the opposite. They had some really good players, but they just had guys, kind of like, I guess, the Crusaders kind of environment now, where you just come in and you either kind of, you float or you sink. And that's the type of team that wins championships. So 1996, you end up in Manly. How does, by the way, Manly at the time, sort of like, I suppose, kind of like how Penrith has been in recent years. It was like a dynasty, right? Just like an epic team. I remember at the time, like, the Pepsi Sea Eagles. Yeah. There's so many supporters here in New Zealand at the time. It was like iconic. Yeah. Great team. You were in it, Reggie. Yeah. Des Hasler. Yeah. John Hopewadi. Yep. Steve Menzies, Cliffy Lyons, Nick Kosa, just goes on and on. Yeah. It was a fantastic team to be part of. And Bob Fulton was an amazing coach, technically, and he was a scary dude as well. Like you went in the changing room after the game, and if we'd had a loss, he just didn't want to be. He just didn't want to kind of catch his eye, and you knew that he'd be going straight home just to dissect. And he'd come to training the next day, and you sit there going through all the analysis and everything, and it was obvious he'd spent the whole bloody night sitting there just kind of chopping through tape and stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, no, it was very cool, and kind of intimidating coming into a team like that, just full of rock stars. But they were, again, just a bunch of, great bunch of guys.
And you knew Matthew Ridge quite well, but he didn't have anything to do with luring you to the team, right?
No. I got a phone call from Frank Stanton, who was the CEO, and so I'd played against Leeds had played against Australia, and we got a bit of a hiding, but I had a reasonably good night. I was marking Mal Meninga, so I managed to contain Mal, which obviously impressed them. And so Bob was kind of like, oh yeah, we'd be pretty keen to get him over. So that was kind of how it all started and unfolded from there. When I was at the Reds, went down and played at Manly at Brookie. Had a good game there as well, and I guess that probably helped. So yeah, next thing, I'm off to Manly.
What was the biggest surprise for you when you got there in terms of like the team environment and the training? Was it like a different level of professionalism to what you'd experienced before?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But it was, the interesting thing too was with all the Super League RL stuff going on, there was a bit of contention about my contract at Leeds and whether I'd fulfilled obligations or not. And so of course you got all the NRL lawyers saying, well, you hadn't signed up to play in a Super League competition and all this, and because, they're saying you need to get over, you need to go to Sydney. And I'm like, well, so in the end, I was like, okay, I'm off. So I left Leeds and headed off to Manly, and I was sitting in my new apartment, overlooking the sea on Manly Beach, thinking this is pretty awesome. And I got a knock on the door. And there's this guy standing there with these papers, and he goes, "You Craig Innes?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You've been served." And so I was being sued for breach of contract. So that kind of hung over us all the way through that period as well, which made things kind of interesting. But it was kind of taken care of by NRL lawyers until later on it wasn't, which is another kind of story down the track. But yeah, as far as the competition, I learned so much in the first few weeks being at Manly and just being, around those players and just, a little bit more structure than what I was used to playing in England. And like I was saying before, just, it was just tough and pretty brutal but I kind of found my thing, and really, really loved it.
What's it like going to a grand final?
That was amazing. Like, they'd lost it the year before with Canterbury Bankstown. They'd won the minor premiership and they expected to win it, they'd lost. So they're going into this one, we'd won the minor premiership again, and then going into this, there was no way they were going to lose this game. So, I mean, sometimes you can kind of be a little bit, bit nervous kind of going into these games, but that particular week, no one was nervous. Everyone was just like, let's just get out there and we just want to get this done, get this in the bag. And so to kind of get that as a feather in the cap was pretty amazing. Something I'm really proud of, having a premiership.
Yeah, and you scored the first try.
Yeah.
How far into the game was that?
I don't think it was too far, maybe 10 minutes, something like that.
Shit.
Yeah.
Scoring in a final is amazing, right?
I bet John Halper added to the ball by like a quarter of a second, and I've never let him live it down. Like telling he's the slowest winger ever to play the game. But yeah, no, it was pretty cool, very cool.
And there's that iconic photo of that win.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like just, do you have that framed at home or anything?
No, I don't. No, I don't have that.
It's a beautiful photo.
Yeah, it's a great photo. Yeah.
Like there's that saying, a picture says 1,000 words, and that definitely does. Like it's just elation.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that vibe like in a changing room after a win like that?
Well, it's kind of bizarre because there's that initial excitement and but then it's almost replaced with a bit of a what now? We've kind of done it, and what are we going to do? What's happening next? And so everyone kind of sits here a little bit, kind of like stunned mullets for a little bit, until it kind of really seeps in that this is what you've achieved, and then of course you get on the bus and you head back to the Leagues Club, and that's absolutely chock-a-block, just bursting, and that's when the fun really kind of begins. Once you get back to the Leeds Club and kind of surrounded by your supporters, and they chuck you up on the stage, and so the whole experience was pretty amazing, and kind of like, I guess, when I was at Leeds going to the Challenge Cup. It's not something I grew up ever aspiring to, to go to Wembley and play in a Challenge Cup final. And just like I'd never really thought about winning NRL or, Rugby League Premierships, but amazing to kind of be part of that experience, but also to share with your teammates who have spent all their lives, manifesting that experience and going through that and actually achieving that, and they're sitting like Mark Carroll, big Mark Carroll, with tears bloody rolling down his cheeks, and things like that, which was pretty amazing. And
do you get a ring? You get a championship ring?
Got the ring.
Where's that?
It's just at home. Just just locked up somewhere.
Yeah, but it is okay. So it's like a medal. It's not something you wear, but it is something you treasure.
No, yeah, I think the boys all kind of wear in there for the first 24 hours or whatever, and but they'll put away.
Yeah. Man, that's unbelievable. Was Mad Monday a thing back then?
Mad Monday was a big thing back then. Yeah. In fact, I think that's when my haircut changed from. I think I got down to the Stain Hotel where I'd gone home just to kind of check up and make sure everyone was okay, and then head back to the Stain, and place was pretty much empty of all our players, and said to the one of the bar staff, "Well, where?" And they said, they're in that back room over there. So I opened the door, just all these bald heads. So they had the razors out, and so they grabbed me, and had the same haircut ever since.
I don't know how you got the energy to party after a game like that, because physically and mentally you got to be exhausted, right?
Yeah. Oh, you just
find the reserve somewhere.
You find it. You just manage it. Yeah, it's a chance just to it's so intense all year, and to achieve it, and you just don't want to let it go. You just want to keep that kind of celebration going as long as you can, and then eventually you just run out of puff, and that's it. But you certainly make the most of it.
And that season, which was incredible, so bubbling under in the background was all the legal stuff that you were talking about before. Was that happening through the entire season? Yeah,
well, not so much. Well, then we went into the second year, and we had another good year, won the minor premiership, and then they ended up playing Newcastle in the final, and we ended up losing that one. In the last kind of seconds of just before extra time, Darren Albert, the Newcastle winger, scored, and that was it. So that was a completely different experience to winning it the year before. Just the, I guess, devastation of losing a final. But then kind of into the off season, and Bob Fulton pulled me aside one day, and he said, "Mate, it's not going great with all this legal stuff." And like I was mentioning before, the leagues clubs were doing it pretty tough, having to pay out all these players, and it kind of pretty much bankrupted a lot of clubs, and that's where you start to see all those mergers start to happen, like Illawarra and St George got together, and remember Manly and Norths kind of combined for a while. So it was all this type of stuff, all on the back of this period they've been through. So he was like, "Mate, you might end up having to go back to Leeds." And I was like, well, fuck that. I enjoyed my time up there, but, I'm kind of heading home rather than kind of heading back. And that's when we kind of engaged with rugby union as a potential, and so that's what we did, and end up kind of working out this deal with the British Rugby League, and like a transfer fee, compromised transfer fee, and I came home and back to rugby union.
Was that stressful for you at the time? Even though there's lawyers dealing with it, like how do you fully focus on the game and the job in hand when there's that going on in the background?
I think it's all you can do. I think it's all you can do really is just kind of focus on what you can do, and I guess I think that's what helps to be decent or a decent player is being able to just focus on your job and let stuff kind of over the top, and also have good people around you to be able to sort through all the rubbish so you can just get on with your job.
The power is back on. Shall we resume? Did that sort of give you an insight or an idea about the sort of career path you could take post-professional sport?
Yeah, I mean, I guess not initially, but you kind of everyone gets to that point in their careers. It's like, okay, what's going to happen? What am I going to do next? And I had kind of started to think about it because, through my rugby league career, you're surrounded by guys with agents, and you see the good ones. And I think you start to form when you've been doing it as long as I had been, forming an idea of what it takes to, I guess be a professional rugby player or league player, and the resource that you need around you. So you basically, the way I look at it is, you're your own business. And so you need a support network, you need your family, you need your friends, you need a good accountant, you need a good lawyer if you need a lawyer, and you need an agent that's there to kind of bring it all together, and really just another cog in the wheel. So that's how I started to kind of think, and then one thing led to another, and through a mutual friend, Tony Kemp, who I played with up in England, Kempy had a mate, Bruce Sharrett, who was starting to dabble in that space as well. Bruce had come from a financial services type background, and we got together and we started I think it was called Direct Sports Management back at the start, and we were running around in board shorts and t-shirts, and grabbed a few teammates as clients to begin with, and away we went. And that was the start of it, really.
That sort of opens this last chapter quite nicely. But first of all, I've just got a couple more to end with on the sports side of things. Did you ever have an agent through your career?
Not really.
Or was it just like lawyers and accountants that you leaned on, or what?
Grant McCara, I guess, was as close to an agent as I had. And if I look back over my career, could I have done with having, like, on the ground, Grant was back in New Zealand, obviously, and doing his own thing. He wasn't an agent as such. Could I have done with having an agent? Yeah, probably. There's probably a few things that would have been ironed out a lot quicker through professional advice than me trying to kind of wrangle my own way through it. But it did set me up, to be able to, I guess, move into the space with a bit of confidence.
So you moved back to New Zealand. Does it piss you off that you never got to play for the Kiwis?
Not really. I guess, when I was playing in the UK, just for whatever reason, just wasn't really kind of considered. But I came back to Australia. I've obviously playing pretty well, and at that point they were pretty keen to get me involved. But the whole ARL Super League will stop that. So New Zealand Rugby League had gone with the Super League. I was ARL. So, I mean, in a funny kind of little twist, I have got a cap, an international cap, but it's for the World 13 against Australia, But yeah, I guess having never grown up really wanting to aspire to be a Kiwi, in that team, I guess, I mean, I don't sit here, today going, man, I wish I'd have made that team. It's just, would have been nice, I guess, but at the end of the day, doesn't really matter to me.
It's funny that, like, you only know what you know. It's like you were saying earlier about winning the championship ring with Manly and some of the guys crying. And, because it wasn't your heritage or your history, you don't sort of understand just how much it means to other people.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and that's not, taken away.
No, absolutely.
From my own experience and the enjoyment I got out of that. But, seeing those guys, and it was the same with Leeds, going to Wembley. Like, Leeds hadn't been to Wembley for years, and we were off to Wembley, and teammates were just like, they were beside themselves. I mean, that's all they'd ever aspired to as footballers, was to that trip to Wembley. And what an experience, 100,000 people in a bloody football stadium. Pretty amazing.
Man, it's the stuff of goosebumps.
Yeah. I mean, like, you walk out there and you just can't believe it, really.
Yeah. So you return to rugby, and that's where you end your career. I think you sort of answered that. I was going to ask what pulled you back to New Zealand rugby, but it was sort of like you're in no man's land.
Yeah, well, I kind of was a little bit. I mean, I could have come back to the Warriors, but for whatever reason, I didn't want to go play for another leagues club after having those 2 amazing years at Manly. Rugby was an option, and I guess there was that that little bit. You wonder if you can kind of get back to old past glories and continue from there. But that wasn't to be. But yeah. I guess coming full circle was great, and coming back and coming home was was an important time to come home, and yeah, I mean, like the guys I played with at the Blues are all, a lot of those guys are still good mates, and but a lot younger than the group that I kind of finished with.
Yes. So where are we now? Is this the late 90s?
This is this is late 90s. Yeah.
So you did you have a young family then, or no?
No. Well, I retired around, I think I was about 31, 32. Yeah. So Gabriel, my oldest, was born kind of around about that time. I was just finishing off.
Yeah. How were those last years? So you played the 1998 Super Rugby final?
No, I think it didn't go that great. Actually, I came home, played in a warm up kind of tournament in Australia. Went to South Africa, and first game I blew my knee out, which was unbelievable. Given I'd hardly put a bloody piece of ice on my leg for 3 or 4 years before playing league. Come home and did my knee, so that was pretty much me out for that for that entire season. And so yeah. I mean, like, if I look back at it, I enjoyed being back, and I enjoyed whether I didn't enjoy the rugby as much as I had done in the past, and I think having kind of gone off and gone in a different direction, and then kind of come back to it. I wasn't back long before I was kind of going, I don't know if this is, where I really want to be from a rugby point of view, but from a life point of view, it was exactly where I needed to be.
It's funny how it's almost like your body telling you that the time's right.
Yeah. Well, by the time I retired, I think I was only about 31, but that year, kind of leading into retirement, exactly that. My body was. I just knew it was time to give it up. When the old eyes are saying there's a gap and go, and legs are saying go to hell.
Not anymore, Postie.
Yeah. It's kind of like, and the younger guys are getting quicker. So I made the decision that that was going to be it, and it's time to get on with other things in my life.
Yeah, you were in the Blues with Jonah that last year, eh?
Yep. Actually, Jonah was when I did my knee in South Africa. Jonah was my roommate. And I mean, like, everyone's got Jonah stories, but I tell you, and it's, I mean, when you're in a rugby team, this is just par for the course. But, I remember Jonah staying up with me pretty much all night, bringing ice in, making sure that I was, had plenty of ice for my knee, because, you're icing every bloody half an hour or whatever. Going out, bringing food back, and he was basically my nurse for 24 hours. He was a great guy, and but just one of the boys.
That's such a cool story.
Oh, it's,
look after the old guy.
Yeah, look after the old boys. Yeah, exactly. But but that's what you'd expect. They kind of, there's no kind of airs and graces. Doesn't matter who you are. It's everyone mucks in.
Were you, when you knew the end was in sight, were you sort of like anxiety ridden? Like, were you worried about the next chapter? I just, like, very few people get to experience what you've experienced, like, the roar of the crowd, or, whether it's running out in Wembley, or, winning a league title, or, finishing third in a Rugby World Cup. I can't imagine how terrifying that is, knowing that chapter's ending, and whether anything in life's going to bring you the same sort of level of joy again.
Yeah, no, true. It's, you certainly need to be thinking about it well before, that message comes from the CEO or whatever, that, mate, there's no more contracts. And she's a pretty steep curve down as far as earnings and everything else go, when that message comes. So, I'd been thinking about it for a while and talking to different people. So, I was kind of ready to, I was ready. I was, I was satisfied with where I was at as far as what I'd achieved. And I was actually ready to move on with the next part of my life. So, I don't kind of look back and go, did I really miss it or anything? Not really. There was plenty of other opportunities and other challenges out there, and so it's just a matter of getting on with it.
A lot. I mean, you'd be more about this than what anyone would. But a lot of people, I suppose, struggle with that piece, like the piece about what's next. You must see this time and time again, year in, year out.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to figure? Oh, you sort of mentioned a few names before, like Tony Kemp and Bruce.
Yep.
Bruce.
Yep.
So did they sort of like talk you into this idea, or did you have the idea?
Oh, no, I kind of had the idea myself, and, talking to Kempy and that, and he said, well, you need to talk to Bruce because he's starting to think about stuff like this, and he was starting to dabble and had a couple of clients. And so we spoke, and our philosophies pretty much matched up on what we thought, and it was good. Where, me coming from a professional playing background, so kind of understanding that side of things, and Bruce coming from a financial services type background, and, really staunch on the, budgeting and making sure that these guys had good advice all the way through. So he brought that. So we actually had a really good mix to kind of go out there and pitch for new clients, whatever. And I often kind of, certainly in the early days, used to pull them up quite a bit and say, mate, you can be mowing their bloody lawns next, the way stop, make him get out there and do it, But it worked. It worked really well, and our partnership kind of went all the way through to today, really.
Who were some of your early clients? Can you drop some names, or is it sort of frowned upon?
I mean, early clients, well, I can tell you that the first client we ever put into Japan, for instance, was Romy Ropati. And if you remember, Romy's played for the Highlanders. And the good lesson there was you go and play for Toyota, you don't roll up in a BMW.
It's going to be a Yaris.
Yeah. Jerome Kino. Jerome was one of those guys that we picked up as a schoolboy, and we had all the way through his career. And even now, he's, and guys, those kind of guys, that they're always clients, we're always there if they ever need us for anything, But yeah, it's a massive list, so I'll get kind of lost in it. But yeah, we've had some great clients over the years.
Well, you've got so much credibility, and you've been doing it so long. Like, you're very early to the game, right?
Yeah.
And with that comes like credibility and experience and a whole bunch of stuff. What is it about Japan that makes it such a fascinating or intriguing rugby destination? Can't be just the money.
No, it's not just the money. The money's, it's on par with, the likes of France and the UK. But I think just the fact that it's so close to home, it's a 10-hour flight. And I think the guys like that, as far as longevity goes, it's a good competition these days. I mean, they have a lot of the best players in the world are playing in that competition. But the unique thing is, you might have World Cup winners playing next to guys who still driving a truck for the for the company, and then turning up at training at 5 o'clock, and then going back and drive his truck in the morning. And so you've got that kind of mix of full on professionals and amateur players, all kind of combined into one. So it's a pretty unique type of environment, but they do a good job of looking after the families. They have good accommodation. They're pretty loyal, the Japanese, as far as, you look after them, you do the right thing by them. And we tell the guys, you go to Japan, you got to change your focus a little bit. You're there to help bring on the other Japanese players, to set a good example in the gym, and to obviously to help them win games. But if, you keep your nose clean, you stay out of trouble, if you do all these things, well, you could be there for a long, long time. So guys do, some of them have been up there for bloody 10 years.
Yeah. And What's the most frustrating thing about your job? Like, what do people think you do versus what you actually do? And has the movie Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise ruined everything for you?
Yeah.
Is it a pain in your ass?
Not really, because that's kind of, I guess that's been our philosophy. It's kind of along those lines of a Jerry Maguire, where it's not just about
Show me the money.
Yeah, it's not about just kind of doing the contract side of it's actually probably the easiest. It's the most satisfaction you get is that pathway, just helping to, I guess, keep momentum going in someone's career. And of course, there's always these injuries and these loss of form and all sorts of drama that go on in people's lives, and it's kind of navigating through all that to eventually finish your career with, like I was saying earlier, with something a little bit more to show than a few rugby jerseys and a few trips away. And if they can do that, and if you've been part of that, that's pretty rewarding.
And in 2022, you were acquired by Wasserman. What is Wasserman for anyone that doesn't know?
So Wasserman are a big American sports and entertainment company. So on the sports side of things, all the American sports, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, you name it, they're into it. Football, probably the biggest football agency in the world, up in Europe. On the entertainment side of things, they manage the likes of Coldplay and Drake, and it just goes on and on. So it was started by this guy, Casey Wasserman, who started off with a few people and just kind of grew this kind of beast of a company. And basically, they just took us as the rugby and rugby league guys and bolted us on. Because there was no one doing that. After they acquired us, they went out and bought another company, CSM, which was a big English sports and entertainment company, and the only real crossover was rugby. So guys that we'd been throwing hand grenades at, over the years, were all of a sudden they're our colleagues, which was kind of interesting. But it's been awesome. So what we've been able to create is this great rugby and rugby league agency. France has 21 agents. They basically, the whole French team are Wasserman clients. The whole 23 of them, 24 clients. Same in the UK, a big number of those Lions clients. So around there in South Africa. But the good thing is that we're basically just been left alone to carry on and do what we do, but with this resource behind us. And this network, this amazing network around the world for our players to tap into. So we're very lucky in that respect that we can do what we've always done and offer the same kind of services and, do all that, but with this resource behind us as well.
I mean, it's every business owner's dream, right? To start something from scratch and build it up to the point where someone wants to buy it out. So are you on a salary now?
Yeah, I'm basically
you're a wage slave.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You still love it.
Yeah, I do. And I've been able to change my role. So with East Fortief, and that was who we were before. And actually, the East Fortief story was quite cool too, because there was Bruce and Duncan Sandlat, who's another Kiwi who had been up in the UK and specialising in coaching. But we wanted to turn it into this global thing, but we didn't really know how to go about it. And Duncan just happened to be seated next to this guy. Oh God, now I've got a blank. Peter Kenyon, who had been the CEO at Manchester United and Chelsea. And so he was telling Peter that we wanted to create this thing, and do you know anyone that could help us kind of bring it all together? And he said, "Oh, yeah, I can probably help you with that." So Bruce and I jumped on a plane and we went up to Jersey, up to where Peter was, and we basically sat in a room for three days with him, and we came out with this international company. He kind of brought people in from around the world, and at the end of it, we got cheeky with him and said, "You got any interest?" He said, "Yeah." So he became our chairman. And and off we went and kind of built the East Fortief rugby business, which was pretty cool. And I remember being on the plane, going back with Bruce and just going, has that just really happened? All of a sudden, we've got the former Manchester United and Chelsea CEO as our rugby chairman. Does he know what he's doing? So that was pretty cool.
Well, I suppose you're like, well, sport is sport. Like if he can do it at that level for the round ball, he can do it at this level for the oval ball.
Well, he was just a great sounding board, for all sorts of things. And then, of course, when the Wasserman thing came along, his knowledge and expertise was invaluable, really.
And the Wasserman deal, is that confidential knowledge? Is it public knowledge? How much it's sold for?
No, it's confidential. Yeah.
Was it a good day for it to be Craig Innes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're partners, of course, at Eastbourne Teeve. So, but yeah, look, it was I guess nice to get rid of some risk.
Mm.
Yeah,
I've had numerous successful founders and entrepreneurs on the show, and they all say the same sort of thing, that it's like a strange day, and it's actually quite underwhelming the day you sell, because it's like you've come into some money or financial reward, but also like you've sold like a part of you, like a limb in a way. Is that a fair way to explain it?
Yeah, and the thing I guess we underestimated was, telling staff, who got really attached to the whole Esportif kind of brand, and it's like, well, what do you mean? Are we going to keep the name, or and so that was really interesting, and then having to kind of get out there and re-sew and get that Wasserman name out there, because I mean, it's a big agency in the States, big agency in Europe, but no one knows who the hell Wasserman are around here, so that's a challenge to really kind of grow it.
Oh, so staff had sort of bought into the culture or the loyalty, and
yeah, we're on the move again. But but at the end of the day, like I said, we're basically doing the same stuff that we've always done. And for me personally, it's been great because it's been able to change my focus a little bit. So I spent a lot of time concentrating in the international markets, but now being based down in the Hawke's Bay, and what a great kind of part of the world for talent down around there. It's allowed me to kind of go out and get my own kind of roster of domestic clients, which is I'm just loving. I've got this great group of young players who are, I think will come through, over the next few years, and we'll be able to talk about a few of them. But it's been good because you've obviously been there yourself through the age group stuff, and then on to that next step and be able to pass that knowledge on. It's pretty cool.
Oh, is that how it kind of works? So people don't look you up or call you up. You've got to go out and sort of try and find them young.
Oh, bit of both.
Right.
Bit of both, right. Yeah.
Oh, so you got to go out talent spotting.
Yeah.
Or do people message you and say, hey, Postie, there's this kid here?
Both. Yeah,
what's the youngest kid that you've had on your radar?
Well, I mean, it's most of them are, the youngest would maybe be year 11, year 12, kind of around there.
Right.
Most of them tend to be transitioning from that year 12 to year 13. And to be honest, I mean, that's for a lot of these guys, that's a pretty important period because, you've got the franchise, Super Rugby franchises, the NRL clubs, they're all kind of chasing around this small little group of players. And so for parents and for the kids that are getting phone calls from NRL clubs, having advice and having the right people kind of being able to coordinate that is pretty important. So that's when we start to get involved. Like when we first started, I never dreamt that we'd be talking to kids at school. They all tended to be like 21, 22-year-olds, but that's all changed. If we were doing football, I mean, you'd be talking to a bloody 11-year-olds. It's kind of crazy. So thank God we're not at that point. But it's very competitive, and the thing is that, the NRL clubs are in that pool. They're chasing the same kids that the franchises are. So and it's a pretty small group. So it's very competitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're dealing with, let's say, school kids or their parents, what's the sort of tone of the conversation? Like, are you managing their expectations, or are you telling them that it's a potential pathway for their son or daughter to make money as a professional athlete? A combination of both?
It's a little bit of both, because the fact is that when they're at school, most of them aren't going to go through to being professional players, even if they've been the best team in their first 15, or, I think, the stats on New Zealand schools players, for instance, that team going through to, Super Rugby, it's about 20-odd% or 30%, maybe max. So it's not high. So our focus is really like, rather than working your education or your job around your rugby, it's kind of got the other way around to a large degree. Your education's got to be number one. Certainly in the first instance, for those first few years, if you're a bloody good footballer and you're going to play Super Rugby, by the time you get to signing a Super Rugby contract, you get to that point, forget about your schooling for a while. You're going to be, it's full on rugby. So those first couple of years are really important to kind of, just get that ground and get in there, get stuck into the schoolwork and make sure that, you're getting to a point where, after a while you can start picking up papers again and kind of work through it. But rugby takes over for a long period.
Are there many kids that you spend like a lot of time with nurturing and developing and you never see a cent?
Oh, yeah. Heaps. Yeah, like a stack of them, yeah. Yep. And that's a hard conversation with, some of these guys. It's like, mate, I think you need to concentrate on, getting into the work. Yeah. And because, everyone's got a dream.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty hard thing to hear. But you're kind of doing them a disservice if you're just kind of dragging them along and
give them false hope.
False hope. So
have you got better at those conversations?
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, it's just a conversation you got to have. It's just you're just not being fair if you're not having that conversation. And it's a really hard conversation to have. And even for some of the older guys, that might have been knocking on that All Black door for a while and, there might be an opportunity overseas, whatever. And it's like, sometimes it's the only opportunity they'll get. Sometimes you'll get there, I just kind of feel like I need to give it more of a crack here for a while and chase that dream. And sometimes that dream's it's not reality, But, at the end of the day, you don't want to encourage guys to go off and do other things until they've satisfied themselves that they're ready to move on.
What about success stories? Like, is there anyone that springs to mind that you spotted, like still at school age, that has gone through to have a phenomenal career?
Well, I mean, Drome's obviously one. Mosse Tuoli, he was a favourite. They've all been favourites, but Mosse was great. He started. I remember sitting with Bruce, sitting in the lounge at his mum and dad's. Selling them the dream. And then Moss, played for Auckland for a while and then up to Northland and then ended up down in Crusaders where he became a bit of a legend down there. And then we got him up to Japan and, he was at Yamaha for years. And, in the meantime, wife, kids come along. So, and that's the cool thing, these guys that start as kids, basically, and then you're seeing them kind of progress through their career and also the family kind of situation changing. And as those priorities change, their priorities change as far as, the money becomes more important when, there's mortgages to pay and everything else. So, but yeah, that's the real rewarding part of it.
And how close is your relationship? Like, is it a month or 6 weeks every year where it's like intense negotiations, or are you sending them a text before each game, or a condolence message if they injure themselves?
Yeah, but a bit of everything, really. Bit of all of that. Obviously when there's contract negotiations are on, it's pretty intense. You don't want to be living in people's pockets either. But yeah, look, at different times of the year, different things are going on, and then there's obviously more contact. And when that's not happening, if they play well, it's send them a text. If things aren't going very well, how you going, mate? You okay? Rehabbing through injuries. And that's one thing. I guess having been a former player is I'm able to kind of, have that understanding of you see a guy on TV go down and he's holding his knee, and you can just see in their face, because I just know that, for the next 6 months or a year or whatever, they're just sitting on a bike or, the team are out, and you just don't feel like you're part of the team, So you've got that empathy, and you understand what they're going through, which I think kind of helps.
Oh, 100%. What's the one piece of advice players typically never listen to until it's too late?
I think timing as far as moving on can be an issue sometimes.
Oh, you can understand why though, eh?
Oh, totally.
Especially if it's all and you think it was like this when I finished up with radio. Like the last couple of years before I finished, I'd be looking up Seek and stuff to see what other jobs I could do, and it's like, I don't want to earn that. Yeah. But I'm talking also from New Zealand to that next stage in their careers or whatever. Like, it's just because it's all timing. Your values up here, and then you're kind of down here, and you know what I mean. It's your timing's really important. Just getting all that right. So I guess that's one thing. What is New Zealand rugby currently doing right, and what could we be doing better for players?
I think it's a really interesting time at the moment. I worry about the game, to be honest, here in New Zealand. And the game is a spectacle,
In terms of what?
Well, yeah, I guess I get as frustrated as anyone watching a test match where after 5 minutes you got 3 or 4 players in the bin and the TMOs bring in players back after, like a knock-on that happened 6 phases and, like all that kind of stuff I think is really messing with the game as a spectacle, especially if I'm comparing it to like NRL, for instance. So I think they really need to sort that out as a spectacle. Here in, as far as rugby here in New Zealand, what worries me, I guess, more than anything else is, what I see is the erosion of what's the fabric that's underpinned us and made us different to everywhere else in the world. And I'm talking about things like, age group rugby, for instance, and not having representative rugby up to a certain age group. Things like roller mills, which was so important for us as kids, just to aspire to those kind of teams and just do anything to kind of make the grade, including losing weight and everything like that. But the age group stuff, I think's, there'll be experts out there to tell you that's just the way it is. But I just can't see how that's a good thing to not give kids that can really, that competitive rugby and something to be aspiring to all the time. So that really worries me. And, just the state of, I guess, club rugby and, it's a different, society's changed and, things are different. And in a lot of stuff is probably out of everyone's control. But, when I see like New Zealand schools team getting cleaned up by the Australians by 80 points, for instance, when I see like, All Black teams kind of, getting cleaned up, like the South Africans did and, stuff like that, there's something not right, and I think it comes back to high performance and I guess, we've got a lot of really talented rugby players in there. I know that, I watch a lot of schoolboy rugby. There's a lot of talent, but I'm just wondering if we're letting them down with the pathway we're giving them and, to kind of get to that point. We haven't run a under-20s World Cup for a number of years now. And it's, it's not by, it's not by mistake that the likes of England, France, South Africa have dominated that under-20s over the last few years, and the other teams are doing really well at the moment, right? So I don't know. We've got a lack of money in the country, of course. I think New Zealand rugby is, we've always been hanging in there by the skin of our teeth, just by the nature of, where we are in the world as far as, we're a small island in the middle of nowhere. The South Africans going off to play up in Europe. That was always going to happen. That's where the money is, and that is on the same timeline as the UK, South Africa. It just made sense, but I think it's done real damage to our game here.
It's funny, just a little observation. I think that's the longest answer you've given today, and it's an answer that's talking about the sport in general rather than about yourself. Yeah. Are you more, is this your passion? You're just more comfortable talking about the broader game than well,
I thought about it before I kind of came in. I don't want to be negative Nancy, right? No. But I think, I'm a realist as well. And, some people follow the Yankees and other people follow Manchester. The All Blacks are my team. And, we're regardless whether, it's lucky enough to play for them or not, it's following this team has been a big part of my life. And, everything about it, about the All Blacks is something that I've enjoyed being an All Black supporter. So to see, I guess, this change, I think there's a real change that's gone on, and how do we get it back? That's the question.
Yeah, and you're in a unique position where you can comment on this. As I mentioned earlier, I think there's been something like 1,200 All Blacks in the history of New Zealand. So you're part of a very, very small group of people. Yeah, from what you're saying, it sounds like it's like a bigger problem rather than just like a coaching specific problem or a current moment in time problem. But yeah, did your paths ever cross with Razor as a player? Did you play against each other in the tail end of your career?
Yeah, tail end. Yeah, tail end. Yeah. Tail end of this, yeah.
What do you is he the right guy for the job?
Look, he's there, right? And I think I'll support him 100%. You know, he's got the job, and I think we'll see whether he's the man or not. You know, that's yet to be seen. I think, and this is kind of regurgitating old stuff, but the way that in Postie, the way all that kind of came about, and the way that situation was handled I thought was disgraceful, and as far away from what it means to be like an All Black, and in that that whole All Black kind of thing. I couldn't give a rat's ass who was going to be the coach the following year. Where there was a World Cup to go to, he was the coach, and I know that there was some people who are very close to that team and had a big part of their success over the years that went to the board and told them they couldn't do it, and they did it. And it was just I've never wanted an All Black team to win as much is that bloody World Cup final.
I think a lot of people felt the same way.
Yeah, and
Team Postie.
I mean that Irish semi-final, I think I've never been as proud of an All Black team. It was amazing, and then that final, and for me, it just would have been like the greatest win ever. Just given the build up, everything that had happened, and I kind of knew that what had gone on would have galvanised that group like nothing else. Oh my God, I wish we'd won that game.
That was I remember going out that morning and watching it. It was a really good game as far as finals go, though. It's everything you could hope. Is that the one where Sam Caton was sent off?
Yeah,
that was rough. You've got some hot takes, some strong opinions. Did you ever look at coaching or getting into administration like with the NZRU?
No
interest.
No. I kind of dabbled a little bit with coaching, just bit of school, but it was never going to be my thing. I don't know if I got the patience for it, but no.
Do you think young Kiwis are better off starting in league or union right now?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's skills that develop in both games that will that cross over for sure. I don't know. I think rugby league kind of obviously gives you great tackle technique and stuff like that. So maybe that's a good way to start. But yeah, no, there's some real crossover. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with young players now or up-and-coming players, how important are things like social media, personal brand, and off-field behaviour?
Well, it's becoming more and more important. The whole social media things, like...
But is that a good thing? Like if you're a young player and you've got, say, 20,000 followers on Instagram, does that sort of work in your favour or is it irrelevant?
I think it's how you handle it, and a lot of them use it as just some kind of form of communication with your mates, and that's all good. Other guys are trying to commercialise it, and, if they're going down that track, well, it needs to be done properly, So we try to help them with, some advice around all that, bringing people in to kind of help them and get them going. But I think as long as they're not getting too kind of caught up in it, is kind of important too, especially in the early stages, And one thing that we do know, this is such a small market here in New Zealand, from a commercial kind of point of view. We tell the guys, hey, you're going to make the most money being a decent rugby player, rather than an ambassador for, some pet food or whatever,
Lynx or Powerade.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice thing to have, but at the end of the day, if you're a decent rugby player, if you're playing good footy, that's where you're going to make the majority of your money. So that, try not to get too caught up in it all.
Well, if you look at someone like Richie McCaw, I think he only set up a Facebook after he retired.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah.
Didn't need the distraction.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm asking you about that. Going through our DMs, I sent you a message the day before I had Ridgie on the podcast saying, hey, Postie, I've got your Ridgie coming on. You can share anything about him? And I think you replied to me about 2 years later.
Yes.
Yeah. Before we close on that chapter about the agent stuff, is there anything that we've overlooked? Anything that I should have asked that I haven't?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, it's like I really enjoy it, and I don't think it's probably what people expect it would be. At the end of the day, you're dealing with young guys and girls now, and all the issues that kind of brings, and larger kind of extended family and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes there's big drama, and but yeah, look, at the end of the day, we're there to kind of guide them through as much as we can, and play a part that hopefully brings them to an end of career where they can look back and go, well, I made the most of it. Yeah.
Without naming names, what's the biggest sum of money that's been on the table for one transaction?
Yeah, I think rugby's not NFL or NBA or anything like that.
When you hear what Stephen Adams is earning, it's like, wow.
No, okay. Yeah, Wasserman client. But hey, if they're doing well, then it might be a couple of mil,
a season. Yeah, wow. So, you're born in New Plymouth, 1969, summer of 69, just like the song. So you're 56 now. How do you feel about this chapter of your life?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm living down in Hawke's Bay these days. Been down there for a while now. We built a house about 3 years ago, and so I spend the majority of my time down there, and I'm able to kind of do my work from down there, which is great. I'm a pretty keen fly fisherman, so I get down on the old Tuk River whenever I can, and kind of try and haul a trout out of there now and again. So yeah, no, life's pretty good. Just kind of tracking along. And look, no plans to stop doing what I'm doing with the Wasserman stuff. Still really enjoying that. Want to help these younger guys, especially, kind of navigate their way through, and so that's cool. Looking forward to kind of just carrying on with what we're doing, really.
What is a perfect day for you these days?
Probably, a lot of my stuff, it might be, doing some of the domestic stuff early in the morning, and then, the Japanese stuff will kind of kick in later in the afternoon, get a bit of that stuff sorted out. And then late afternoon, I might be shoot down to the river and try and catch a trout, or take the dog for a walk, or, maybe even a round of golf. So, trying to mix it up, life's pretty good down there.
Fantastic. Yeah, you got a new knee as well. So
new knee, yeah.
It's a bad time to be a golf course in the Hawke's Bay region.
Not quite, but we're heading there.
When you're out on the Tuk River trout fishing, is it something you do solo, like to clear your head, or are you usually with mates, or?
Often by myself.
Yeah.
And but I have got a couple of mates that are pretty keen on it as well, and we go off now and again. An old mate of mine got me into it after when I came to the end of my career. He was like, "Well, you need a hobby. You need something to do," and I didn't realise that he was kind of like a pretty keen fly fisherman himself. And I said, I've always been kind of keen on, have a look at that fly fishing, and his eyes lit up, and he said, well, pack your bags, we're off on Wednesday. And we ended up tripping all over the place. We were down to Patagonia and fished down there, and, in Argentina, and all over the place. It's been fantastic, actually. It's just a really nice kind of get away from everything, and, just concentrate on trying to catch a fish. It's been a real find, actually. It's great.
Are you good?
Not as good as a guide. Yeah, I'm pretty good. I can usually find one somewhere.
Yeah. One thing I like to ask most of my guests about is their mental health, especially like guys our age in our 50s.
Yep.
How's yours been?
Yeah, I think pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of happy with my lot. Just kind of getting on with things, really. I don't know what else to really say. Yeah, things are good, and I'm good.
But no one gets to the position of being in their 50s without being kicked in the ass a couple of times. What's biggest adversity you've gone through?
Parents passing away. My mother passed away. It's going back about 15, 16 years, way too young. She was only 62, I think.
Oh, shit.
So that was obviously pretty tough. My kids were still pretty young, so it's just that sadness of knowing that she wasn't going to be there to kind of see them grow up. And a couple of things like that. yeah, I mean, you get kicks in the arse along the way. It's how you bounce out of them, I guess. That's what counts.
Yeah, it's true. I had a incredible woman sitting in the chair that you were sitting in yesterday called Dr. Alia Bojalova. She was a SAS psychologist here in New Zealand.
Sure, should be interesting.
She wrote a book called The Resilience Toolkit, and she talks about not bouncing back, but bouncing forward from these things.
Okay.
So not just getting back to where you were, but like ending up in a better position.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, like life throws shit your way, and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's a roller coaster, isn't it? You have good stuff in it. Same in this job that we're doing, there's good stuff and there's bad stuff,
Are you good at the vulnerability piece with your close mates, or do you sort of process things internally on the banks of the river? Or?
I'm probably pretty old school, I'd imagine. I think you'd probably put me in that category.
But I'm the same, and I know it's not something to be proud of. Like, I know I should be better at having these tough conversations, but I'm shit at it. It's hard.
Yeah,
the time never seems right.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've got good mates, and I'm happy to kind of share stuff with most of them, I guess. But a lot of the time, it's kind of in joke kind of form or whatever too. We kind of take the piss out of each other like guys do, and I'd say, to sum it up, I'm pretty old school when it comes to all that.
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning, you've got a lunch tomorrow with some of your old rugby teammates, but are you still in touch with your bandmates and the Camel Toes?
I'm glad you brought that up.
So this is like a band with Jeff Ross, founder of 42 Below, Dion Nash, former New Zealand cricket captain. Who else is in the band?
So Nick Ross, from the financial industry. He's the lead singer, and luckily Hamish G from the Feelers. Who's
awesome.
Yeah. So having Hamish kind of just helped to bring everything together.
He's the drummer, right?
He was a drummer, but in our band, he was bass.
Right.
Yeah. So basically,
what was your role in the band?
Well, I was a drummer.
Right.
I was a drummer. Okay. Yeah. So basically, you got a group.
You're playing drums in front of the drummer from the Feelers.
Yeah. But so we came up with this concept, and then we had this band, and it was a bit of we thought, okay, well, let's kind of take it kind of seriously. Should we do something? So we bought it wasn't Hamish, but another musician in, and we basically rope learnt these two songs to play at a friend's 40th birthday. And so we played at this birthday after about 6 weeks of rope learning these two songs. So I'd never had a drum lesson in my life, and these guys can manage a few chords or whatever. But anyway, we rope learnt these two songs, and it was a friggin' disaster, like absolute disaster. We had this guy, another friend we brought in as our manager. He reckoned it was like listening to 4 or 5 blokes all playing different songs at the same time. So we didn't get off to a good start, but we kind of kept at it. And then I'll show you the footage at some stage. But Mike Chun had organised for a 50 years since the Beatles played at the Auckland Town Hall concert.
Wow.
And he asked, he said to Jeff, Jeff, you got a band? Do you want to, you guys want to play at this thing? You get 2 songs. And Jeff's like, oh yeah, sure. So he came back and told us, you guys want to do it? We're like, no, are you crazy? But anyway, he kind of talked us into it. So we brought Hamish in, and we basically rope learnt these 2 Beatles songs, Hey Jude, and I can't remember what the other one was. And we were the opening act, and it was packed. It was a packed out Auckland Town Hall, and it is the most terrifying thing I've ever done. It was. I thought, kind of being the drummer, I'd be at the back and that would be it. But we got in there for a rehearsal, and the drums were up on this platform up there, just looking straight down at the crowd. It was terrifying, absolutely. But we got away with it. It was the biggest fraud ever. But,
it's amazing. Yeah. It's funny that you say it's the most terrified you've ever been. I suppose it's what, you're comfortable with what you know. But for most people, like running out onto like Wembley in front of 100,000 people for a contact sport would be, way more terrifying than that. We were so out of our comfort zones. And the funny thing is, like, if those guys listen to this podcast, they'll be like, well, what do you mean it was a fraud? As far as we're awesome. But but I think, with the rugby side of it, you're nervous, and then the whistle blows and you're just into another game of rugby. This was, what you got to do.
Yeah. This was completely different. It was just like, bloody, what are we doing here? But we got away with it.
So is there a reunion on the cards at any time?
No, we've been hiatus for quite a while now, and I don't think we could reach those kind of heights again. So we kind of just sit back and just live with that memory.
Mm. And you're a dad. You've got like 2 adult daughters now. So not that I want to apply any pressure to anyone, but I suppose like grandkids on the cards in the future.
Oh, in the future, I don't think anytime soon. Thank you very much. But
how old are the girls now? So there's Toby and Dolly, eh?
Yep. So Gabriel's should be 24 next year. Toby's just turned 23.
Yeah.
They're great. Yeah, they're doing great.
Because one thing I remember, I was thinking about this on my run this morning. I don't know if you'll remember this at all, but I don't think you were even at home, but I was around having a meeting with your wife, and the girls were there. They would have been maybe primary school age, and there was like a playhouse or a doll's house or a sleep out sort of thing at the back of the house, and the girls took me in there to show me something. And there was like a statement of intent or a letter or something on the wall from you.
All right.
Can you remember what that was? It was something like, be true to yourself, don't forget where you came from, or something like that. Does this ring any bells? Do you know what I'm talking about? I remember reading it at the time, and it stuck with me for like 15 years or however many years it's been. It was like a really wonderful note, whatever it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't remember.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool.
No, they're good. They're good girls.
And you seem to have a good relationship with them. I was just like going through your social media for this. It seems like your love language with them is light roasting.
No, yeah.
There's I've got one here. There's a joke with your older daughter on Instagram about her never picking up wet towels and having unauthorized tattoos. And for Toby, don't ever stop being you, except for the bikini Instagram photos. You can stop doing them. It's really cool. It's a wonderful relationship.
Yeah. No, they're great. And they're off doing their thing, which is cool. At the end of the day, that's what you want. You want them to be happy and off doing their thing, and they are. Yeah,
you're proud of them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And they proud of you?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, I think they are. And, now and again, someone will kind of like, I remember your dad or whatever, and they think that's pretty cool. I think they are.
Mm. Oh, yeah, there was another one. It was like you trout fishing and one of your daughters with you, and you made a joke about her just using you for a photo shoot.
Yeah, that's Toby. Yeah, she's missed social media.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, her social media game's a lot better than yours.
Yeah, much bigger, yeah.
What are you still working on as a man?
That's a big question.
Yeah, and with some deep ones.
Yeah, bloody hell. Look, I think you never stop learning, right? And I'm just trying to be, a good father and a good husband and a good friend. I think they're all the most important things you can be. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with where things are at. And what I've done, and but it's not the end of the road. There's plenty out there to try and achieve, and I think one thing with this whole Wasserman, even though we don't own the company anymore, you still want it to be a success, and you still want to be out there competing, and and so that doesn't leave you. So look, just continuing to do things and do them well.
Yeah, I love that. I would have thought I'd be retired by now. Like in my 20s or 30s, like 50 was sort of the goal age.
Yeah.
Now I'm 52. It's like I don't want a job that I want to retire from.
Yeah.
I want to keep doing something.
Yeah.
You need that reason to get out of bed, eh?
Oh, I think as you get older, you realise you just got to keep. It's important to kind of just keep moving. And that's your body and your mind. And my father-in-law, he's a great example. He turned 81 not that long ago, and he still plays tennis on Fridays with his mates, and he still gets out and plays cricket and tennis, and he's just been to Australia to an old cricketing luncheon with a group of old mates, and I think that's awesome. Once you stop doing all that kind of stuff, you're in trouble, I reckon.
Yeah. Is it actually tennis, or is it pickleball?
No, he's tennis. He's tennis.
Shit, that's good going.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be the most attractive games to watch.
It's
most
not
entertaining.
Taylor,
Yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of movement, but he's out there doing it though, and that's important.
Have you found, as you get into this chapter of your life, you've got more emotional? I'm probably projecting here. Like I went through my 20s, 30s, even most of my 40s without crying, and I don't know, just the last decade or so. Yeah, I'll cry at anything at the drop of a hat. Usually happy tears.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think there's obviously things that set you off. Gabriel, she's up in London. She comes home, like she goes back. It's that will set me off. And it's funny, like thinking about mum or something like that. There's things that kind of, I guess, set you off. But yeah, not that often, I guess.
Oh, that's good. It shows you care, right?
Yeah,
it shows what they mean to you.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, like the fact you lost your mum 15 years ago and you can still think about her and it sets you off. I think that's just the impact of the relationship.
Yeah, totally.
Do you have any regrets?
No, I don't. I was thinking about that, before we came in, because I thought that'd probably be a question, and because everything I've done has led me to where I am today. If anything had been different, well, I wouldn't be sitting here with you now. I wouldn't be, wouldn't have flown up from the Hawke's Bay. I mean, it's amazing where life takes you, really. Only not in a million years to ever think that I'll be living in bloody rural Hawke's Bay. But there we go. And it's the decisions I guess I made early on that were tough decisions, like, whether to leave New Zealand Rugby and go play rugby league. Those kind of decisions set me up for where we are today, which is, I'm pretty grateful for, really. And I'm kind of proud of myself for making those decisions at quite an early age.
Yeah, so how did you end up in Hawke's Bay?
I met, my wife now. I guess we're going back about 11, 12 years ago, and she was from down in Havelock, living in Havelock, a couple of kids at school down there, and but a lot of her work up in Auckland, and so we got together, and so I started kind of back and forth with her down there, and discovered that I love the place, and we bought a bit of land just outside of Havelock a few years ago, built a house, got married I think about 4 years ago now, and amazing.
She's awesome. Belinda. She used to be a journalist on TV3. I'm pretty sure she was at my first wedding. Yeah. Her and her, not you though, another bloke.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's second time around for us both, and but yeah, look, amazing, and so with that, a couple of stepdaughters, Molly and Grace, who are awesome kids, and lucky for me, they've got great parents, so I get to be, like a really good friend, and they're a couple of my best friends, so yeah, really, really, really lucky. And although, surrounding myself with a lot of females.
I was going to say, like, massive female energy. So there's your two adult daughters from your first marriage, and now another two in this blended scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, no way. Lucky man.
Yeah. No, it's cool, and they're all doing well, and really looking forward to seeing how they all kind of go over the next few years, and what's in front of them. But it's great living down there, and back and forth to Auckland. It's still a fair bit, and Belinda's stuff kind of works in with what I'm doing. So we get to travel a fair bit together, and no, it's great.
Would you say you've been lucky in love or unlucky in love?
Well, I've got to say lucky, I guess. Going through separations and things, people have been in that.
I've been there, bro.
Yeah. So, it's not a fun time, as people have been in that situation. No, but, I guess on the other side of that is you don't know what's down the track. And lucky enough for me, I found my best mate, and we're doing great.
Fantastic. You seem really happy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And the two younger kids, what do they call you? Just Craig?
Yeah, Craigie, yeah. Yeah, just depending, but no, I'm just Craig or Craigie, yeah.
Yeah. Is it still customary for the dad to pay for daughters' weddings?
Bloody well, better be.
You've got an expensive couple of decades coming up potentially.
That, but at least I'll have a decent seat anyway.
Yeah, everything's worked out pretty good, and I wonder if it's you made the right decisions,
Touch wood.
or so far so good.
Yeah.
Late 50s. I wonder if it's a case of you making the right decisions, or just making the decision and then just working your ass off to make sure they were the right decisions.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely a big element of that, and I'm a big believer of ideas manifesting as well, and
you are.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I think, I look back at all the rugby stuff, like the All Blacks, for instance, and this might sound arrogant because, I was never like a great All Black or anything like that, but I always kind of, in my mind, I always kind of knew I was going to be an All Black. I just had this thing in my
self-belief.
Yeah, in a funny way, because I don't think I project that, and I'd hate to think I'd like to think I'm a pretty humble kind of guy, but there was always this kind of belief that this is what you're going to do. And I think that made my other decisions quite easy, kind of having done that and going, okay, well, I've done that and then I'm going to go off and do something else. So no, definitely I think positive thought manifests positive outcomes for sure.
What are you most afraid of?
I don't know. I guess losing things, losing it all. And I'm not talking about, life throws up all sorts of shit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, if I can bat all that bad stuff away as long as I can,
Yeah. Was it not losing everything like the mate you talked about earlier at the casino?
Well, who knows? But yeah.
What 3 words would you like family and friends to describe you? Say it's your funeral and you're in the box. Yeah, your daughters are there. What 3 words would you like them to say about you?
I'd like to, think that, I'd like to think that I'd be seen as, a reasonably kind of humble kind of guy and pretty, pretty down to, pretty straightforward with things. I'm a realist, I think. Kind of pragmatic about a lot of things. Family's everything to me, and friends are really important, and just being a good person. I think at the end of the day, if people kind of think that he was a good bugger, well, I'm happy with that. At the end of the day, what else is there really?
Yeah, it's everything, eh?
Yeah,
it was way more than 3, but I think that's a great collection of words.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's good. That's great. And I think you definitely tick all those boxes. Like that note I'm talking about before, that was in the girls' playhouse at home. That definitely sums it up, I think. Yeah. I wish I had a clearer memory of exactly what it said.
Yeah.
I just remember I'd never seen anything like that before, and I thought it was just a really cool thing. And I wondered if it came from one of your team environments or something like that, but it was really, really cool.
Yeah, potentially,
that your daughters, every time they went into this play area, this play space they had, they'd see this message from their dad. Yeah, sort of like an instruction manual for life. Oh, this has been a great chat.
Yeah, well, thanks, mate. It's been nice being here, yeah. Kind of reminiscing.
Yeah. How is the reminiscing piece for you?
I mean, like it's fun to kind of go over old experiences, I guess, and and most of it's been pretty positive, I've been lucky, I guess, in that respect. I guess I've been lucky to be in extraordinary positions, throughout my life, and I'm, really thankful for that, to experience all sorts of, different things, which is, for me pretty cool.
Can't think of a better place to end it. Postie, Craig Innes, thank you so much, mate.
Been nice being here.
Yeah.
Cheers.